Fellow Chelsea supporters, here at the Blue Day podcast, we are delighted to welcome this individual on the show today. He is a man who made 125 appearances for Chelsea, scoring 10 goals and winning 3 trophies with that. The Community Shield in 2005, the Premier League in 2006 and the FA Cup in 2007. He is none other than Shaun Wright-Phillips. Shaun, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good, man. Thank you for having me on.
No, it's absolutely fine. Shaun, I just want to start, if I can, from the very beginning. When it came to deciding to become a footballer, who were your influences growing up as a child?
I think it was weird. It quite hit me kind of late in terms of believing I could make it or even wanting to be honest with you. But I think my mum, obviously my dad's there, but I think my mum was the most important figure in my life at that time because she brought me to all the games and all the training sessions I needed to be at and helped me along the way through the tough times.
Was there another career that you was thinking of if becoming a footballer did not work out?
As a kid, you know what it's like. A lot of things go through your mind. One of them was actually to be a fireman. The other one was to work in a bank. And I think the only one that I would actually succeeded in is being a fireman.
Okay. Is that because you like the uniform?
No, just, I don't know. It's nice to sometimes, I always thought growing up, it's nice to be able to help people.
That's a good way of looking at it. I just want to sort of go to, if I can, move on to sort of 2004, 2005, because you had a good year with Manchester City, if I seem to remember. I think you scored that 10, 11 goals that season. When did you first hear about Chelsea's interest? Was it during that season or was it at the end of the season leading on to pre-season?
I kind of heard about it around the same time. I think Arsenal was sniffing around. It was a weird situation because it was Arsenal and then Chelsea came up and basically said they wanted me, really. And Arsene Wenger, as he does at that time, wavered on a lot of situations. And my dad and mum always brought me up to basically be on the page of you have to strike while the iron's hot because you never really know what's going to happen tomorrow or the day after.
Okay. What were your thoughts on both interests from Chelsea and Arsenal? Was you sort of maybe thinking there could be other clubs like Manchester United or Liverpool looking around, or was it a case of it's either Chelsea or Arsenal for me?
Once those two came up, we didn't really think about any other options, to be totally honest with you. And
right.
Arsenal was there at the time, and obviously it's going to be in my mind because obviously Dad played for them, and it
yes.
could have been a nice story to play for the same team as Dad. But seeing the way Mourinho had Chelsea playing and the players that were there, that was what sealed the deal for me.
Did your dad Ian give advice on the matter?
His advice was basically what he's brought me up to believe the whole time was you make your own paths. You don't need to follow anybody else, and you are you, regardless of who your relatives or family are.
Right. Shaun, when you were sort of travelling down to sign the contract, were there any butterflies in the stomach at all? Were there any doubts creeping in? Maybe I possibly not making the right choice. Maybe I should stay at City.
No, there wasn't any doubts in that respect. It was an emotional trip because as a kid at that age, you think you're going to stay at one team for the rest of your life, but you quickly come to realise football doesn't always pan out like that. But once I knew it was a done deal, my focus and goals was solely on going to Chelsea to compete for a place and to help Chelsea win things, basically, regardless of how it happened or how I done it.
Right. Okay. So you signed for Chelsea for around £21 million. Now, £21 million nowadays, is sort of bargain.
It's peanuts, isn't it?
Peanuts, yeah. And it is amazing to think like that. You're sort of looking at certain transfers now that, the average price is 40 to 50 million now. But back in 2005, 21 million was an extremely large amount, and not many football clubs around the world were spending that on one player. Looking back now, did the fee and the numbers involved in the contract, for example, the wage, play on your mind at all while at Chelsea, especially that first season?
No, not really. I think all numbers and stuff is something that two clubs decide. I didn't negotiate my own contract. I didn't negotiate the fee or anything like that. They signed me on my ability to play football, so I just went there to do that. When I was going there and people were talking about it, I just let them talk about it. It's not really my choice. It's not really my choice. To do with like the figures and stuff that come up. They come up with the stuff I always brought up, and my dad always said to me, you don't need to chase money as a footballer. If you're good enough at one point, it will eventually come. So I just always put my head down and just focused on playing football.
Yeah. So you've signed for Chelsea that at the time, as you said before, were Premier League champions. Jose sort of had a team that was moulded enough to be successful. Do you remember your first day of training? And what was it like, having Jose as the coach and having players train alongside you like Drogba, Terry, Lampard, etc.?
It was a lot quicker. I knew my first session, if I remember correctly, it was on tour in LA. I think it was just so quick. I had to get on the same wavelength as seeing and opening my body up, and my first touch always had to be on point, because at times in attacks I can let the attack down by not moving quickly or seeing passes. So in respects of that, I had to learn that pretty quickly. I also noticed that the difference from when I was at City to Chelsea is that at that time I was most probably the most important attacking player. So every time we did get the ball came to me quite quickly. Whereas when I signed for Chelsea, there was about eight players in the team. So I had to learn to be obviously more patient. And then when I did get the ball, had to realise I didn't have to do something all the time. I could pop it off and somebody else could do what I was meant to do, and put myself in a better position to either roll the ball across the box or even score a goal.
That is good insight. You made your club debut against Arsenal, ironically, in the Community Shield. You made your Premier League debut a week later against Wigan. What were your memories of these particular occasions? Being sort of a new player, a new club, it obviously a little bit different to you because you've not been used to it for sort of so long.
Whatever you mean.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly. But what was your mindset sort of looking at it? Because again, you just sort of said it yourself. You was arguably the best player at Manchester City. You've gone into Chelsea with these huge superstars. You've come in. What was your mindset going in? With that start of the season?
My mindset was the same in certain ways, to be honest. I got to where I got to in football by just enjoying the game for what it was. Like, it's football, it's a passionate game. I knew that in growing up in it, it not always goes your way, but the one thing I never not do is work hard for my team, because I know I can have a bad game, but working hard it should be number one on the list for you to do. And if you do that, then you're still helping your team in some way. So I knew as long as I work hard, and when I do get the chances to either take my man on and try and make things happen for the team, then I think the best word to use is be positive all the time in that team. Then I think I will do all right. So I just went there to enjoy it and basically show them that I can hang with them, sort of thing.
Yeah, I remember actually there was one particular moment on your debut season, and I was there live to see it. It was your assist for Hernan Crespo's goal against Real Betis at Stamford Bridge. I'm not sure if you remember it. I remember your cross.
It.
You remember it. It was one of the best crosses I saw that season. It was stunning.
Like when you have strikers like Hernan and Didier, you was always taught, like as a kid, you don't always need to pick somebody out. It's about areas, and if you have strikers that know the areas, depending on obviously where the ball is, you know what areas to put it in, and normally they will get on it, or there'll be a battle to get on it. So I knew how Hernan played just through training with him on a daily basis, and the same with Didier. And I always tried to hit the areas they like to be in.
Yeah. Who would you say was the best striker you played with at Chelsea?
It would have to be Didier.
Didier.
Yeah, for me, he had everything you want as the standalone striker. He could hold the ball up, he could win fouls, and all those defenders that thought, all right, we're just going to get tight because we don't want him to bring it down. He didn't. He then would roll them. So it was always good to have a striker that could just create something out of nothing. Because in football, everybody knows in 90 minutes that there isn't a team that literally has the game for 90 minutes. Every team has a spell in a game, and in that spell, when your back's against the wall, you can give the ball to him and he'll make something happen. And that's great to have in a striker, especially that's playing up top on his own.
Yeah. Yeah. At the end of that season, Chelsea obviously win the league. You get your Premier League title. We didn't lose a home game at all that season, apart from the Champions League. But in your sort of own performance that season, how do you think you fared in your debut campaign?
I think I did okay. I think I could have or should have done a lot better. But as I said, coming from where I was before, it was a learning curve. It wasn't so much a learning curve of playing in the Premier League. It was a learning curve within myself and in my ability, and obviously changing in the way I played, because it wasn't all the time I had to get the ball and do something. As I said earlier, it was more get the ball and pick the right times when to do something. And it was a matter of getting my head around all that really and making it work basically.
Okay, yeah. We'll move on to the next season, which was 2006-2007. You do score for Chelsea in the end, because the season before, unfortunately, you did manage to find the net. But your first goal for Chelsea in a competitive game, do you remember who it was against?
No, I actually don't, you know. I'm honestly not one of those players. Like, I don't, when I score a goal, it's always been on to the next one.
Yeah.
Sort of thing, and try to just better it all the time. I can't remember the stands. That was it at the end where there's like a glass box in the right corner. If you're facing the goal.
I believe it is, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
Mind you, though, that season you did score a few belters, because you scored a great goal against Tottenham in the FA Cup.
And that was the replay, correct?
Yes, because all Chelsea fans love it when a Chelsea player scores at White Hart Lane, and I remember that game vividly. It was one of the best performances I've seen Chelsea do at that White Hart Lane. And then it was near the April time. You scored not just one, but you scored two at West Ham.
Yeah.
And I remember your celebration for the second goal.
I tried to forget it, to be honest with you. But you see, the Spurs game was an interesting one, because the game at Stamford Bridge, I didn't start, and I was told I wasn't starting the Thursday before that game by Mourinho.
Right.
And he basically said to me, "You're not going to start this game, but if we are losing at half time, I'll bring you on or before, and then we'll draw the game and we'll go to Spurs and win." And that is exactly what happened.
He was great at that, wasn't he? Because I've heard sort of different people say to me that he would predict something and people would be sort of either questioning it to themselves, not to him, and then it would come true. Yeah. And he was a master at that, I thought.
Yeah, he was very good at it.
And we didn't win the Premier League that season, but we did make the League Cup final and the FA Cup final. I just want to sort of briefly touch on with the League Cup final. Just for clarifications, what was the reasons why you wasn't selected?
There wasn't any reason. A manager, as managers are, they decide what they think's the best team and the best sub suitable for that game. And as a player, you have to respect that. He has an idea and a view going into the game, and it's not just about me. As much as I would have wanted to play in that game or be involved in the squad, I respected the manager's decision and got on with it.
Right, I see. Because I remember at the time there was sort of like rumours whether he was injured and sort of whether I remember there was one bit in particular that sort of I do remember somebody was saying, "Oh, Wright-Phillips has had a row with the manager. He's going to hand in a transfer request," and it was all this sort of garbage, really. It was all this sort of nonsense talk, and it was sort of a case where some people, again, sort of looking back now, some people still didn't know the answer. People were, whether it was a niggly injury or, as I just said, Mourinho was sort of fell out of love for you. So, yeah, I do remember it. It was a bit of a shock because I thought, that again, that season, I thought you deserved to be part of that final because of how you performed through, in the leading weeks up to that particular game. But you weren't involved in the League Cup, but you did start the FA Cup final against Manchester United. Shaun, that must have been a special moment for you and your family, surely. When did you know you were starting that game?
First of all, to put some of the rumours to bed for some of the Chelsea fans. My time at Chelsea with Mourinho, I don't think we had one argument. I respected the man's decisions, as I thought he was a great manager at the time and even now. And that was just the only reason why. But leading up to that game, you kind of do your positional play and check out systems and the way you want to play. And I was in a lot of them, but you don't get too excited about it because minds can change very quickly. So it was more confirmed on the Friday and obviously the Saturday morning.
Right. Okay. Do you remember much? Do you remember much about that, sort of the game itself? And obviously there must have been a celebration afterwards. With it being the last, obviously, FA Cup final at Wembley as well.
Yeah, I remember like the tactics. I was on the pitch not only mainly because obviously attacking it, because I always tried to help my fullback and defend well for the team. And
yes.
I think Ronaldo at the time was on that wing, and he was in rare form. So Mourinho's game plan was at the time was that we're going to double up on him. And basically, when I do get the chances to attack, try and make him work the other way. And to Mourinho's testament, it worked a dream, really, didn't it?
Yes. And with that moment where sort of Drogba has that touch, Van der Sar's sort of running towards him to try and sort of take the ball, and Drogba's sort of just touched past him, and the ball just sort of trickles in. It was a great moment. It really was. But if we move on to a couple of months later to the beginning of the 07-08 season, and, I was looking back doing my research for this interview last couple of days, and I was looking at the games and sort of looking back at the performances. It was one utter bonkers season. It was, change of manager mid-season, 2 cup final defeats. I just want to start, Shaun, if I can, with the change of manager. We discussed about Jose a little bit at the moment. He left in September of 07. It did rock the club that season, and I think even rocked the club sort of a few years after, really. But there have been rumours surrounding that particular day that he was let go. In particular, how with how the players heard of the sacking, and with what Jose said to them on that day as well. There was, there's rumours about players crying over it. There's rumours of players texting their agents or texting their sort of friends on their phone saying they're quite pleased. The fact that he's finally gone. What were your thoughts on this situation? And, again, what did Jose mean to you when being at Chelsea?
He meant a lot to me. For me, he was obviously not only a great manager, but he seemed like a great man away from the game as well, from what I got to know of him. So it was quite upsetting. But as professionals, you don't really get a chance to be upset when you're at clubs like Chelsea, or any club. If a manager goes, you're back in the fight to obviously play for the team and represent the club, and especially for the fans. You know what I mean? They don't deserve what comes with it. So I think when it happened, there was a lot of upset people in the change rooms. I didn't really hear about too much to do with these texting friends. That's honestly the first I've heard of it. But for me, and I know a lot of other players, we was proper upset about it. But as I said, we had that moment to upset, and then it was out for training pretty much. So we had to kind of just get on with it.
What did you make of the replacement? Was you expecting, with all due respect to him, a more high caliber coach to come in rather than Avram Grant? What was your sort of initial thoughts on that?
Yeah, in that aspect, I have to totally agree with you. I think after what Mourinho had done at the club and the success he brought in his spell there, you would have thought if he is going to sack, there would be somebody coming in with a CV like his, or if not better. But it wasn't to be. But Avram Grant comes in, and to be fair to him, with the team that he had, he did pretty well with it.
Yeah, I thought we were unfortunate against Tottenham in that League Cup final. I'll try and not mention it too much because I'm still annoyed with it even to this day. But you know, that particular season, Chelsea don't win anything, but we did reach the Champions League final. Now, unfortunately, you wasn't in the squad. Needless to say, that must have been a kick in the bollocks for you, surely.
Yeah, it definitely hurt. Not playing hurts in general, but that obviously, like, you know, was even worse because if I remember correctly, I played in quite a few games before that, and I personally thought I did well enough to at least be in the squad. But like you say, regardless, I'm a player that respects my manager, so he made that choice for whatever reason he did, and it's something that I have to live with, and it is what it is really. But I was still there cheering for the team as a fan at that time, and my friends playing.
Did Avram give a particular reason why you wasn't selected, or was it just a case of he picked the 11 and that was it?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. He just didn't say anything. So it was either, like, I'm not really that person to ever be a bad egg around the club and upset the vibe of things, but so I just got on with it. Just went and got my seat and prepared to watch the game.
Right, I see. So again, the summer of 2008, England sort of should have been in the Euros, but obviously it was not to be. But that summer of 2008, Chelsea changed their manager. We then get Luis Felipe Scolari in after Avram Grant was sacked. But you play, I believe it was one appearance for us at the start of the season against Portsmouth. I believe you came on as a sub. I was at that game. I was sitting in the Matthew Harding lower because that was a game where Deco scored a beauty on his debut past David James. But you were then sold back to Manchester City quite shortly after that game. Was this particular transfer in the works for some time? Was the admission from the Champions League final play a part in that move, or in fact was this transfer done quite quickly?
It was honestly done quite quickly. There was, at the time it happened, there wasn't a fault for me to leave Chelsea. Also, the club never said they wanted to get rid of me. They was happy with me, but it was more based around my situation for England. I was told that they wanted me to play more games more regularly to obviously go to the tournaments, etc. So all that move back to Man City happened in the space of 24, maybe 30 hours, to be honest with you.
Oh wow, I see. And with that, I mean, you left, because I remember all that whole story about we was trying to sign Robinho, and then it was a case of we was haggling over fees with Real Madrid, and then all of a sudden he turns up at Manchester City, and yeah, that was a crazy summer because it was. I remember we obviously sold you, and it was a case of okay, we're selling Wright-Phillips to bring someone else in, and that player didn't turn up, so he ironically did go to Man City, but the manager that signed you from Manchester City was a former Chelsea player in Mark Hughes. What was that like, just sort of quickly, what was that like to sort of work under him, you know, and being back at Manchester City for the second time?
First, being back at Man City it was always going to be amazing. I said at some point when I left, before I retired, I would hopefully get to have another spell there, and that was kind of what prompted it all in the first place. But for me, working under Mark Hughes was actually really, really good. He was an amazing coach. At his spell at City, that I played under, I loved the way he played his attacking football. And obviously, with the players that came in, it suited us all very well.
Okay, but so just sort of before we do wrap this interview up, I just want to sort of ask, how do you look back on your career at Chelsea? I know that you do a lot of stuff with Man City TV, and I know your affiliation is with Man City, so to speak. But in the years that you were at Chelsea, how do you look back on your time there?
I think that my years I was at Chelsea, for one, I loved the club. I thought the fans were amazing and still are, especially for me at my spell there. And they've always shown me respect and gratitude. Hence the reason why when I ended up at QPR and I scored, I didn't celebrate is because all the respect that they showed me through my career, even through some of the tough times where sometimes it wasn't going my way, they still cheered for me and had my back. So that was we just created it. It's a great atmosphere. It is like my second family. I love the club, and I will never stop loving the club. But I think for me, as in playing wise, I think I could have done a lot better at the time that I was there, or if not, if I'd got more opportunities, I would have done a lot better. But this is football, and I went to that club for the big challenge, and I tried to leave my mark.
I wasn't going to mention that QPR game, but as you have actually mentioned it, I was there that day, and I was spitting feathers as soon as I saw, because I was in the upper tier, and as soon as I sort of saw you lining up that shot, I thought it's going to go in. Please, for the love of God, let it hit Rose Ed. Please, for the love of God, hit a QPR fan on the head. But no, it went in, and I was spitting feathers, not because obviously you scored, and I weren't sort of effing and blinding at you, but it was just a case of, damn. And again, looking back, it was, you obviously gave your all for us, and there was moments where you were fantastic for us. And I think, again, as you rightfully put in this interview, there should have been more games you should have played. But I remember that game thinking, of all the teams to score against us, and of all the players to score against us, it had to be our rivals. But I blame Benitez for that, not you.
But that's exactly, to be honest, that's exactly what I said. That the only goal I scored for QPR just happened to be against Chelsea. I was like, why couldn't it have been anybody else?
Just finally, before we do wrap this up, we're going to talk about the current affairs. I did speak about this to a few other guests that we've had on the show, particularly Ron Harris. Shaun, what's your view on VAR?
You answered the wrong person. I hate it. Don't get me wrong. I think it does help in some ways, but it's not very consistent for a start. I think if they're going to use it, it needs to be ironed out. But I think it's taken a lot away from the game. I think the passion, the bad decisions and things, the mistakes that are made, that you're taking away people's time. Like, you would go to the pub with your friend and you'd have a debate about it. That's now gone. Now you're talking about a computer system with people on the monitor. I think that most of them haven't played. They might have a ref in there, but I feel like if they're going to run VAR, it needs to be some form of ex-players or coaches in and around that area to help them with their decisions, especially in real time and slow mo. That's my personal opinion on it, but I don't like it.
I bet you must have hated it if VAR came about when you was playing.
Yeah, I don't think I would have liked it. You can't even celebrate nowadays. I watched the game. I think it was the Scotland game. The penalties. He saves the penalty. He doesn't celebrate the goalie.
Yes.
He looks, you know what I mean? When really he wanted to explode and he couldn't. You know
That's
what I mean?
right.
So I don't really, it takes too much away from the game as in a personal manner, I think.
I totally agree with that. I will. Final question, Shaun, before we do let you go today. We can talk about obviously Chelsea now, but you played many times with Frank Lampard in the Chelsea side. But what are your thoughts on Frank as a manager, and what do you make of Chelsea this season? Do you think it will be a successful one? What's your thoughts on it?
I think Frank's, for a start, has done amazingly well. I think especially in his first year. I remember doing an interview when he got the job and somebody said, where do I think they'll finish? And I actually said, I think they'll finish in the top 4. And they said, why? And I said, because if he gets them playing the way Frank played, with the passion and the desire, especially to get on the end of things, he has a good team of players there. They might be young, but not a lot of people know what they're capable of, and they went out and basically showed what they was capable of and finished in the top 4. I think now I still think he's doing really well, but it's obviously a bit harder for him because now he has to make those decisions that some managers hate to make, where they have to leave big players out. And he seems to be doing really, really well with it. I think Mendy in goal has been a massive signing for them, which has shored up the defence, and they're defending really well. And when you have attackers like Hakim Ziyech and Pulisic and Mount in the front 3 as well as Timo, I think you can't do much wrong with Kante and Jorginho sitting deep, if that makes sense. So I think he's in a great position, and as long as they play and breathe and wear the shirt the way he did, I don't think Chelsea will have any problems being successful.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Well, Shaun, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on the Blue Day podcast. I do appreciate you taking time out of your schedule. Nice to speak to you for the podcast, and all the best.
All right, nice one. Thank you very much, man.